we die. So it's so hit and miss, and until they figure out exactly what they want to do and what the ground rules are going to be going forward, the last thing you want to do is spend, $120,000 on something that's going to cost $60,000 10 years from now.
That's fair. But you know what else is fair?
What were you about to say, Cody?
Nothing. I was going to go on another tangent before.
Okay.
Oh my God. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Modular Components, the only podcast that's properly regulated by the FDA. I am your host, the Vacuuminator, and I am joined, as always, by the unregulated Boingo Rider.
Hi, I am a danger to everybody.
Oh no! You know what else is dangerous? Snowcone 83.
Only the yellow kind.
Oh. Is there any yellow in Buster Corp?
No.
Okay, well, it's a good thing then, because we have a special guest tonight who can maybe bring a bit of yellow into the conversation. I don't know what he wants to do. Special guest, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Chris. I don't know how to transition yellow into anything that I'm doing, but yeah, no. How's it going, guys?
No.
Hey.
They were all
Frequently.
yellow.
Frequently.
I believe you're currently going by Geek with Chris and More Than Meets the Eye reviews on YouTube, right?
Yes, sir. That would be correct. This week, we'll see what next week brings.
Yeah, you were Toku Chris not too long ago.
I was Toku Chris for a solid decade, and before that, I was Kickback for I think 15 years. So
Kickback, like the Transformer?
Yep.
Exactly. I think I first came across you for the Toku Nation podcast, where you were still going by both Toku Chris and Kickback. You were like introducing yourself as both.
It's so weird to stop and think back on it, because you want to, as you guys know, you want to have a name that people can just easily remember. And back when Transformers were all the rage in the early 2000s, Armada came out, then Energon Cybertron, then the live action movie, anime, all that stuff. It was cool to pick a Transformers character name or whatever, and nobody wanted to be the freaking Insecticon that gets its head crushed in the movie. And I was like, cool, well, I like that toy, that's who I'll be. And that name stuck. And then you get into Tokusatsu, and it's kind of weird to rock a Transformers name while trying to talk about Tokusatsu. So I had to change it up somehow. And then it was actually Greg from Bandai who coined the phrase Toku Chris one year at PMC. And I was like, you know what? That works. That sticks. I like that. So that's what
It was
I
all
wanted.
Greg from Bandai's fault.
Everything goes back to Greg from Bandai. So thanks, Greg. But yeah, then
Come on the podcast. Explain yourself.
Now I'm trying to branch more than just Tokusatsu, because I still love it, but my merchandise habits around my collecting just aren't with it that much anymore. So I was like, well, I there's a lot of things I like, so I just need a general something that's just all encompassing. And so I was like, you know what, I'll just go with Geek with Chris. Why not? It's there, it's available, I can grab it. I'll just do that. So
it's also probably easier because you don't have to mentally adjust to being called something a little off the wall. You can just go by your regular name.
And I don't have to explain to people what Toku is, so that also helps.
Yeah. I cannot tell you the amount of times where somebody has tried to call me Vac, and it has taken me 2 or 3 times to go oh, they're talking to me.
Right.
Here's the thing. At this point, I answer to Boingo more often than my actual name because of how often I talk to people on the internet.
I still have people that refer to me as Kickback to this day, in person. And it takes, I have to stop. I'm like, oh yeah, they're talking to me. Okay. So yeah, it's I understand.
But nevertheless, you're our second guest in a row who has been a constant fixture of online fandom for a good couple decades now. Does it ever feel weird for you just looking back on how much things have changed since you first started getting into, I don't know, I'm guessing you got into it through forums and stuff like that?
Yeah, so Transformers was my first big fandom that I participated in when the internet came mainstream, so to speak.
When the internet came a knocking.
Pretty much back in the late 90s when AOL was giving away CDs for your computer like there was no tomorrow. Yeah, I mean that's kind of where it started, and there was no social media. America Online had Instant Messenger, but it was still at that point installed through America Online. You couldn't just download AIM as it became known later on. So yeah, my My fandoms were I gamed and talked to people through ICQ, Internet Chat Query, MIRC, Internet Relay Chat, and then obviously through message forums. So that's my old man original way of talking to people. And yeah, how it's changed since then. Social media has both increased engagement for the better and worse, I think. And as someone who's been involved in helping run like websites like TFW 2005, I've been a part of that for 22 years now. Managing that and managing the changing aspect, because why go to a message forum now when you can just go on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or whatever? And let's be realistic. I mean, I know the numbers. I probably say 90% of the world is choosing that over anything else. So the fact that any of that stuff is still relevant to this day, it honestly kind of shocks me in a good way. But it's shocking that, I can go to TFW right now and there's 1,600 people online.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty wild. I think we were having a conversation, at least for a little bit, similar to this with Vangelis a couple of weeks ago, where it's like, it's amazing how many people will stick on these things for so long, and yet we can still have these points of like massive upheaval and migration, kind of like we're experiencing now with a lot of people, including ourselves, migrating off of Twitter or X.com.
Yeah, it's people are going to find a place to talk at some point. I think Twitter or X or whatever it's called this week. I think, and it's just my personal opinion, I think it's too big to fall apart right now. It's too ingrained in our day-to-day lives and culture. I mean, people are leaving, but everyone thought Threads was going to be the killer to Twitter, and it wasn't, not even a little bit. It could have been.
It looked like that for like a split second until we all figured out how shit it was.
Well, I mean, even Zuckerberg's like, yeah, we got, what is it? We got like 15 million users in the first 6 hours. And then the next day he's like, and literally half of them haven't come back. So, but I mean, that speaks not to Twitter's strength as much as it does Threads,
mediocrity
and just horrible system of like, hey, you have to tie it to your Instagram, and we're not going to show you. Did you like the Instagram feed and how it shows you just random stuff from random timelines and random days and random people? Because that's what Threads is now. People don't want that. They want Twitter without it being Twitter. And Blue Sky.
We want a website where we can talk and have news updates without any bullshit getting in the way.
If Blue Sky can get off the ground and not get so corporately invested, I think Blue Sky has a shot. I really do, because I really like Blue Sky's, how it's basically Twitter. I call it Twitter without the bullshit.
Yeah.
I really like that, but I'm afraid that by the time it finally gets off the ground, because it's been in beta now for like 3 years, by the time it finally gets off the ground, it may not matter anymore. You know what I mean?
It is steadily growing, though. It seems like there's a new update every 3 or 4 days, and I feel like at least until Twitter comes under new ownership, or or like Elon just full on steps away for some reason, it's the best option for me. Which is why today I was just like, all right, we got Modular on there. By the way, everyone, at modularmedia.bsky.social. I am gonna just back away from my Twitter until I feel like I really want to get back on, or Twitter's under new ownership.
Well, it's just hard because it's just hard because it's so new and it's not an open platform yet, meaning you still have to have an invite code to register and even see the stuff. So your opportunity to grow, like, for example, I run a website and stuff, so I that engagement is important to me. I can't just stop all that and say F this and walk away, because it's going to destroy my engagement.
That's fair. I mean, a lot of big brands aren't even on there yet. I was looking the other night. WWE doesn't even have an account on there yet.
AEW does.
Oh, good for them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go follow that right now.
I feel like every week, ever since the Twitter kerfuffles happened, we've had a social media convo.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really engage with Twitter. I've tried to try to talk to people in particular groups, because I never, even being a kid with a computer, I never got into forums too much. I had MySpace and that was it. Like, that's what I rocked. But I think what we're seeing with like the whole Twitter situation is less that, like, yeah, sure, there might be people leaving for this or that, or like there might be shit going on. I think that homeboy who bought it just doesn't really want it anymore. I think that if they do something like bankruptcy wise, and if he screws it up enough, then maybe he can get out of the whole mess he got into. And I think maybe that's what we're seeing. That's why we're seeing all these crazy changes. He's just like shaking the cage, like fall off already, get off of this.
It's so hard now too because Twitter was a publicly traded company. Now it's privatized. So if it goes bankrupt, he has to find someone to buy it, or it'll just shut down. Whereas when it was a publicly traded company, there was shareholders, there was a board, and things like that. Like other people got to make the decisions. It wasn't one singular person being like, "Fuck this."
And with it being that way, it also runs the risk of it getting bought by another big website company and just making it part of some huge monopoly. Like,
well, one thing
it could come out tomorrow that like Zuckerberg or whoever runs Google right now bought it.
Well, my biggest fear is that you end up, because if you look at where most of the money in the world is right now, I think the worst thing that could happen to it, other than dick-faced continuing to run it, is if he decided to sell it to one of the princes in Saudi Arabia. Look what happened with the PGA and stuff like that, because that would be a company that did it. And at that point right there, you talk about people freaking out regarding TikTok and Chinese spyware and blah, 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 blah. You talk about that. Well, now go ahead and have Saudi Arabia owning Twitter and having the ability, if they wanted to just go, let's go see what's going on in all these government accounts DMs. I mean, there's a huge possibility for a huge issue. If that happens, then yeah, I think then Twitter is completely destabilized. They shut it down. They start disallowing it. And then I don't know what happens to the social media atmosphere at that point, because Twitter is still the only thing out there that is text-based. Everything else is picture-based or just has a weird algorithm.
And Twitter has also just been the happening bar on the street for so long that, like, a good chunk of human history is now archived on Twitter. Like, there are in smaller countries than us, because we're all in the United States, but there are smaller countries than us that have had major political upheaval that has been severely helped by Twitter's existence, by being able to communicate that quickly and simply.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up a second ago. Like, like there's the business side of that whole thing, and then there's the utility side of it. The utility, once there, like, that is what is protecting it, I think, because there's still that, like, there's still most people who are like me. I still hop on there to get a lot of my toy news because, like, yeah, it's on Discord. Discord doesn't mend well with my brain, so I don't like hopping on there to like check it like that. Like, and again, with Instagram, with what you were talking about, like, it doesn't really line up with how I like to receive that stuff. Sometimes it's nice once you learn how to, like, train that algorithm, which is a sad thing to say, but, like, even still, you click on the one wrong thing, and that's the rest of the shit you're looking at for, like, the next 10 hours. Like,
and it also sucks because, like, again, getting back to Blue Sky, the one thing I don't like about it is just not enough people have gotten in the groove with it. There's plenty of people who I know from Twitter who have made accounts and like posted on it sparingly for a week and haven't been on it in 6 months. Like, Preternia's not using it, Discussing Film's not using it, and it's like, fuck, I guess I gotta start checking those websites.
Is everything was built, I mean, WordPress had things built into it where I could make a post on WordPress and it goes to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. Blue Sky's not in that yet. Yeah, I can't auto feed anything to Blue Sky. If I want to update my website and have it hit Twitter, not a problem. That's automated. But if I want to hit Blue Sky, I have to go log into Blue Sky, get the picture, get the link, and do it all manually. And in this day and age, taking the time to do that, especially then when it's going to be for a very small audience compared to your Twitter, your Instagram, whatever. I'm just going to keep it on like Twitter because it feels weird saying X.
Oh, yeah.
But time is money for these companies. So I understand, why should I spend any time or resource to hit the 400 people follow me on Blue Sky versus the 20,000 people following me on Twitter, because 1% of each, 1% of 20,000 is a lot more than 1% of 400. So,
I mean, just to post a TikTok that will upload from Modular Media, or a toy photo that I'll post on Instagram, to then go and repost that on Twitter, Tumblr, and Blue Sky, that is a half hour solid of just getting all the tagging and everything right. So I can imagine not wanting to add extra time onto somebody's routine. Say if you do Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all those.
Well, and you still don't even know what the future is. Blue Sky may fall apart like Threads did. So then you put time and energy into it for nothing.
That's
And
fair.
the whole other aspect is just for like the common user who's not even using it for the way that we do. I mean, if it's not immediately accessible and it's not like if it can't click real fast, then I think maybe one of the only things that's holding it around is just the fact that like Twitter is in such a unknown area that all these other sources that may have even already failed aren't necessarily hitting that yet because there's people just mulling about, hopping on this, looking at that, being driven away from the main.
Yeah, Blue Sky. Go ahead.
I was saying people. I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, you're good.
You're the guest.
I was going to say, people don't want to click. The more clicks you make people do to get to the stuff they want, the less likely they're going to do it. Which is why I'm surprised forums even still exist. Because, I mean, I'm sitting here right now and Twitter just loads automatically for me. Like, I click one button, refresh new tweets or whatever, and then all this stuff's there and I can scroll through it. I don't have to click anything. But the more clicks you have to give someone to do to get through to get something, they're not gonna do it.
I mean, I never got into forums back in the day because I found them too confusing as a kid. And a lot of recent changes Discord has rolled out as a way of being like, oh, social media is kind of in trouble. We're going to make things a little more robust and easy for you to find stuff here, has actually had the adverse effect on me where I'm like, this is starting to remind me of forums. I don't know if I want to be here if it's like forums.
Discord is just a fancy chat room 30 years later. That's all it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the
Works
voice
great
chat. The
for
voice
games,
chat
but-
utility. Yes, voice chat utility on Discord is second to none. But everything else is just a pain in my butt, except for the fact that any picture you post onto Discord, you can save as anything. Like those WebP images, you can save that, upload to Discord, and it automatically converts it to like PNG or something. So I like that. That's nice. I'm sure they'll figure out a way to screw that up, though.
I mean, talking about just like the users don't want headache. That's why Mastodon never took off.
Oh god, that was so confusing.
I'm a pretty big fan of that band. I don't know.
No, Mastodon, the band, good.
I know,
Mastodon,
I know.
because I joined the VTuber Mastodon instance, and like you had like you have to know what the fuck you're doing. You have to find the right place that's like comfortable for you, and then you have to start using the website. And people don't want to go through that.
All right. Well, I think that's enough social media talk for one night. Let's get on something a little more fun. Chris, your channel purports to be sort of a time machine of Transformers reviews, going back and reviewing classic stuff from throughout the franchise's history. Where did the idea for that channel come from, and what do you think we can expect in the not too distant future?
Well, for starters, I discovered after I did my first video, which was basically a San Diego retrospective, right? Because I got to go to San Diego Comic-Con and experience all that. And it was at the time of my life. That was great. I decided to just engross myself in all Transformers while I was there. It was fantastic. I got to talk to BMAC and the whole team that was there and create personal bonds and stuff. And that was so much fun. So essentially, I've been collecting Transformers since I was a kid, right? So I'm in my 40s now. My parents started buying them for me when I was 4, and they bought them until they weren't on shelves anymore. And then, surprise, they started coming back, so they would keep buying them for me. And then eventually, I started earning my own income and started buying them myself. And I just never stopped. So, like in my collection, I only have probably 15% of all the Transformers I own actually on display. Everything else is in storage in my garage in tubs. And a lot of that stuff I've decided, like, I'm probably going to part with a lot of it. Just because, I need to cut it down, right? Like I have an office in my house right now, but eventually I have 3 kids. They're all going to want their own bedroom eventually. So right now they have 2. Right, 2 sleep in one room, 1 sleeps in the other, but eventually all 3 want their own. So I have to figure out how to shrink everything I own within the next 3 or 4 years. And I thought to myself, you know what? It's very therapeutic to go back and hold something that has been in storage for 10 years, 15 years even, and photograph it or video record it, whatever, before you decide to get rid of it. And it's kind of like having that moment of, okay, this is cool. Like now you remember it, you have your fun with it or whatever, and then you can let it go. So I was like, you know what? Before I start selling everything that I don't want, this is a way for me to document it. As long as YouTube never goes out of business and shuts down, this is a way for me to document that I had it, and I can always go back and watch it. And like I said, I've been a fan literally all my life. It's a great way to share that with other people. And looking online, everyone, of course, it's a race to be first, right? It's the race to, I imported this toy from Singapore and paid an extra $60 to get this $25
I got my
here.
stolen Chinese toys.
I got my stolen Chinese toy, so I could be the first one to get it up, so I could get that sweet, sweet YouTube check. I have literally no interest in doing that. Again, because for me, it's all about nostalgia, right? Like the stuff I'm buying now, the legacy stuff, I buy the stuff that's legacy G1. That's what I grew up with. So, it's like a mini masterpiece version of the toy I used to play with when I was a kid. That's cool to me. And I'd like to go back and look at the original one and do that and kind of put that out there and see what people think. Because, I mean, Transformers turns 40 years old here next year. There's more than just G1. There's more than just the movie. Obviously, there's Armada, there's Energon, there's Cybertron. I bought all those toys. I have all those toys. They're in my garage right now, like just hanging out. I probably haven't held some of them since I put them in a plastic bag and put them in a tote. And that could have been anywhere from 20 years ago to, 2 years ago. So that's what I want to do. So as far as what I hope to have, once my office is cleaned up enough to get a little mini light box set up here so I don't have to shoot against a wall or something. That's what I'm going to do, is just start going through, and there's going to be no order. There's going to be no rhyme, no reason. It's just going to be like, hey, what tote am I pulling out today? Okay, it's this tote. I'll start going through and making videos of all the things in this crate or whatever. And just sharing like the personal memories of it. And, I think at one point I was going to be like, hey, is this toy shelf worthy? Is this worthy of being on your shelf? Like, is this something that is worth going out and hunting after all these years later? You could make arguments for different versions of different Transformer toys over the years and whether or not it's even worth hanging on to, because let's be real, some of these toys from back then, they're really not that good. Case in point, we'll say Armada Starscream, right? Armada Starscream, iconic version of that character. I think the original is better than the one that came out in Legacy. I just do. I would put the original on my shelf before I put the Legacy one on my shelf, because it's just in my opinion is the important part. Just a more fun toy. And so it's being able to take all that and share it with people and allow people to, look back, experience it, and who knows? Maybe people will agree. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll yell at me. I'm expecting it. I'm all for it. Let's go.
Mm-hmm. So it very much is an archival project without any real sort of rhyme or reason towards the order. You're gonna be kind of flying by the seat of your pants, it sounds like.
Well, yeah, and once it feels like a job as opposed to being fun, then that's when things don't happen with it, right? Like anytime that your hobby starts becoming a job that's not fun because there's no like reward for it, whether it's fiscal or clout or whatever you want to call it. If there's no reward, it's not fun. So like I said, my thing has just been, if it's fun for me, if I'm having fun with it, then that's what I'm going to do. And when you pigeonhole yourself or put yourself in a corner because you set ground rules that you're going to follow on something as silly as maybe even sequential order, you risk getting yourself to a point where like, man, I really, there's a reason I put these in a tote. It's because I'm not a huge fan of them, and I really don't have to sit here and slog my way through recording all these figures because, I'm not a huge fan of these toys. That's why they're in the tote in the first place. Because what happens then if, say I'm filming Energon toys and I get my Studio Series 86 Ultra Magnus in. Like, I'd love to be able to stop and pull out that new Ultra Magnus and take a look at that and be like, this thing is cool or this thing sucks or whatever, and not have to be like, well, I can't review him for the next, 38 videos because I have to do all these other toys first. I just don't want to pigeonhole myself into anything. Obviously, you want to create something that your readers can expect or your listeners can expect or whatever, but and that's where you create the community. It's like, at some point when I get a following on it, it'll be like, hey, what do you want to see? Like, obviously you guys would probably like to see Armada stuff, right? So I would say, what do you guys want to see? You say Armada, cool. Let me do some Armada stuff this week. For the next 3 videos, I'll do Armada stuff, and then we'll go back to something else. but that's down the road. Like I can't do that now. I have like 18 subscribers. Like I can't do that now. But down the road, it's just celebrating. It's celebrating the history, the fun. Like you said, it's archival. And for myself personally, it's therapeutic and just fun.
Yeah, and that's a totally fair way to look at it. I think I definitely do understand the fear of having the passion project go to be something that's more of a chore because you're turning your hobby into a job. Though I've always found that it is really just about keeping it interesting and exciting for yourself.
Yes, I would agree.
Like I definitely could be doing a lot more to make the channel a lot more consistent and clip grabbing and whatnot, but I feel like I strike a nice balance between that and just talking about the things I want to talk about when I want to talk about them,
Yeah. Well, and you see a lot of times too, especially on YouTube, like it's YouTube can be as clickbaity as some of those websites that we all, rag on social media because they're like, this shocking new development in this movie production.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you're like, hey, someone will eventually reply immediately to be like, here's the news. It's just this. You see that a lot on YouTube. It's like, they did what? Or this toy, the reason this toy is horrible, or I wasted my money, or things like that to get people to click it. I don't want to do that. That's not what I'm about. And I mean, yeah, drama sells, and the more dramatic you can make something, the more interested people are going to be. Like, oh, what this guy has to say about this because he looks like he's pissed. I don't want to do that, and I don't want that to be my audience. Because then they're not there for the content; they're just there for whatever the drama is supposed to be. And I'm sorry, like I've had my share of drama over the years. I'm good. I got kids now. I got a family. Like, that's what comes first, and this is supposed to be for fun. That's what it's supposed to be about.
And it's a very common theme of this channel for us to talk about. Like, we definitely don't like the idea of videos being about drama or about drumming up clicks or anything like that. If your videos should be about anything, they should be about you. It should be about your interests and what you like or don't like, and creating a cult of personality around that. And I think you've definitely got a good idea for how to make that happen.
Well, I mean, we'll see. Everything can change. I mean, it took me. I've had the graphics for this channel done for like 8 months. And it took me that long just to get the first video out, but I knew I had to get it out because if I didn't get it out, I'd just sit on it and I wouldn't know what to start with. And it's about doing something that I enjoy, but also not copying every other person that's out there. And we talked about this when we went to Shin Kamen Rider. Just trying to make something that I would want to watch, because if I want to watch it, I know somebody else will probably want to watch it too, right? But at the same time, like, I don't want to be the guy that has their hands in a video transferring a toy, because one, there's like 1,000 billion other people that are doing that, and two, of that 1,000 billion other people, 95% of them are going to be better at it than me, and I'm not afraid to say that. And
but I think it's also, and I think I said this to you at the time, you can say, I don't want to do this because everybody else does it, but there also is a space that should be allowed for being able to take ideas from other people and make them your own.
Absolutely. I mean, it's about doing it similar but different enough that you stand out.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I remember we talked about different, like, YouTube review channels that do things similar but also different, and what can you borrow or be inspired by but somehow make it your own. Like you talked about Vangelis. I've known Vangelis for over 20 years now, I think. I mean, him and I went to BotCon 2002 together in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Yeah. He was there with his brother and his mom. That's how long ago it was. I think he was like 16 at the time. I've known him for a long time. I was actually, I think I was on episode 4 or 5 of his Transformers podcast way back in the day. He's like episode 600 now. Oh yeah, it's been a hot minute. But he was really if I remember correctly, when it comes to toy reviews, he was really that first reviewer who would break the fourth wall with the captions. And that's really what set him apart. Was you would watch his video and he'd be doing your review, and then he'd be talking smack about himself, in the captions underneath, which was hilarious. And since then, a lot of people have borrowed that formula.
Well, and I remember a lot of his early videos were just filled with jokes about like, oh yeah, we all overspend on stolen Chinese toys, right, guys? Anyway, I only paid like $30 for this thing on eBay.
Yeah. I mean, his humor is fantastic. I've loved everything he's ever done. But I use him example, and I use other popular Transformer YouTube reviewers as an example of things I inspire to be like, but also not exactly. Some of the people I've known now for maybe not decades, but at least a decade. Like, there's Bolt Matrix, there's Piog. Those two come to mind just because they were two of the close to originals that got big out there. I mean, you have Shartimus, and you have a couple others. The ones that are blowing up now are obviously the ones who are, stolen
Who
Chinese.
grew up watching them.
Yeah, well, I mean, but the new ones now that are coming out, they either grew up watching them, or they're just stealing their toys and getting up first, and that's why they're getting big, is because they're getting it first.
I mean, there's one channel I would say I wouldn't say blowing up, but is being progressively good, and it's because he's doing something different, and it's Thew.
Oh yeah, we were talking about Thew. That's I talked about the things I love that he does. But then I also read the comments, and there's everybody has an audience that loves what they do, and then there's people that are like, man, I wish you wouldn't do this, I wish you wouldn't do that. But yeah, his ability to write those scripts and become as punny as possible, and to do it with such a cheery face. I love Thew to death. I think he is fantastic. I love his video reviews. I watch them all the time. If you don't, you should. And then I mean, but on the other side of it, for non-video stuff, you have Sixo, who does fantastic photography and blog posts. Yeah. I mean, the wealth of knowledge that he comes from, and the Transformers team at San Diego, they talked glowingly of both Sixo and Thew. They just both love the work that they do. And I think the biggest thing that works for both of them is for the majority, they're both incredibly, I don't want to say positive, but they're not negative for the sake of being negative.
Mm-hmm.
If they're negative about a toy, it's because of something about the toy. Whereas,
and I think they're also willing to admit that they're not experts is one of the biggest thing I always notice about them. Like, few will make jokes about his knowledge gaps, or like he'll bring up something obscure because he found out about it during researching a video, and he'll be like, "Oh, you didn't know that? Well, that's good because I didn't either." And Sixo, like, ever since he started gaining traction, like when Triple Takeover took off and all of that, yeah. he used to be just a G1 and a Masterpiece guy, and he's been slowly dipping his toes into all the other parts of the franchise and like learning about it as a part of his podcast. And that's what makes that podcast worth listening to, is hearing this guy who's older than me discovering stuff I've known about for years.
Well, his TF Source blogs are just, I love them so much, and even when he does like his top 10s or top 20s, like I go through it because it's like, it's he's like a gentleman collector, if that makes sense. Like, his pictures are going to be sharp, they're going to be crisp, they're going to be beautifully edited, and then he takes a picture of his collection room and it looks like it's a museum, Whereas you go into my office and I mean, there's acrylic rising stands just like, I got a trash bag over there. There's a food wrapper from one of my kids laying over there. I mean, yeah. It's just it's visually appealing, and it's very knowledge focused. I mean, I know there's a gazillion versions of the G1 mini-bots all over the world, but somehow he's able to take all that information. Whereas I love TF Wiki, right? Because it's such a huge resource of information. Trying to scroll through that to get all that information can be a job in and of itself. So when Sixo is kind of like, hey, I'm going to talk about all the mini-bots all together. Or Chris McFeely with the Basics series. I mean, my God, I mean...
You watch an episode of The Basics, and you remember 5 things and learn 6.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the thing that all these things have in common that I want to stress that is important, and maybe there's some irony coming from me of all people, but none of it is negative for the sake of being negative. It's never F you Hasbro or F you, whatever company. It's just, here's the information.
It's constructive.
Exactly. Whereas transverse yourself into G.I. Joe for a little bit, and depending on which rabbit hole you go down or which channel pops up in your YouTube feed, You're either getting somebody who is glowingly talking about the figures, or they're poo-pooing literally all over Hasbro for a 15-minute video.
I was watching a Full Force live stream the other day talking about that new classified figure that leaked, and literally half the stream was just this guy in his chat trying to argue with him about, like, it has bright yellow on it. That shouldn't be on a military spec ops character. I wish it was all black and dark blue. And he's like, dude, it's G.I. Joe. It's G.I. Joe. There's going to be bright colors sometimes. Calm down.
There's a man who wears a football jersey in G.I. Joe.
There's a Sergeant Slaughter exists.
There's actual fucking ninjas.
Yeah, you're going to talk about realism. Okay, that makes sense. No, and that's the thing though. But that's why you don't see, like, the Hasbro team. You don't see. There's not one giant GI Joe creator out there who Hasbro's partnering with. Whereas with Transformers, you see that, and with Marvel, you see that, and with with some of these things, you see those people that are just like, I want to share how cool this is, or I want to share how cool it looks. Not that they toe the line, so to speak, and not that they ignore a problem. It's just they don't create a problem just to talk about a problem. And unfortunately, in other brands, it's not so much the case.
Is it time to talk about Power Rangers now?
Do it. Hit me with
it. See, that's the attitude on this channel. I know you are a ride or die Power Rangers fandom guy, Chris, but we recently had a massive upheaval here where we were just like, you know what? We're sick of all this drama. We're just not going to talk about Power Rangers on our Tokusatsu podcast for a while. And it kind of permeated the rest of the channel. But given that you're here, would you like to spill some tea on what's been going on the last few months?
I'm going to do my best to speak on things as unbiasedly as I can, despite the fact
that always going to be bias. Who cares?
I was going to say, despite the fact that I do have a personal bias.
Everybody who's bi has an ass.
Yeah,
this is true. And I'll preface it by saying that in some situations, and I know people hate when people say this, but in this case, I have to be, like, transparent with it. There are things that I do know that I can't talk about in situations or things that have happened that I can't share because they're not my stories to tell. And it's up to the people who told me these stories to share those stories. And I'm not going to take that away from them.
Probably won't be until like 20 years from now in a book.
And knowing these people and how good of a people they are, I don't think the story will ever get out. And so that hamstrings me a bit from being able to be like, yeah, I'm not a fan of this person, or this industry professional because I can't talk to you about why. But I'm just not. And I hate being that person, but that's just the fact of the matter. Because I've been
that's the privilege and the curse of being a fan who's very active in the industry.
Well, it is, and it's the same in any industry. It's not just Power Rangers. It's the same in Transformers. It's the same in G.I. Joe. It's the same. It's everywhere. There's
the same in wrestling.
Yes, there's so much extra stuff that goes on behind the scenes or drama that industry drama that we'll never know about because they don't talk about it because a lot of them either one are still involved some way, shape, or form, or two, it's career suicide. If you're a professional in the industry and you decide to spill the tea, as a company, do I want to go and hire you then? Because I just saw the big stink you made because it's going to pick up headlines. Then, yeah, no, I don't want to. So do you commit career suicide to tell your side of a story, or do you just not say anything and let people believe a false narrative because you don't want to career suicide yourself? So yeah, but anyways, long story short, we'll try to TLDR this as much as possible. Power Rangers is entering its 30th season, its 30th year. The final season of the show, as we know it so far, will be coming out in September, which is Power Rangers Cosmic Fury. The history of Cosmic Fury is a little bit muddled. It's a little bit strange. Essentially, they didn't know they were doing Cosmic Fury at all until the very, very end, like literally like 2 days before the end of the 5th actual year, like December 29th of 2021, that they were going to do Cosmic Fury. And And so that late into the game, people are like, is there another season? Are they going to do anything for the 30th anniversary? What's going on? Blah, 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 blah. So then they decided they will. And then the name came out, Cosmic Fury. And, as you guys know, Power Rangers usually adapts things from Super Sentai. So everyone's like, ooh, Cosmic means space, means we're probably getting Q Ranger. And as a huge Q Ranger fan myself, I was like, sweet, I love those suits. I can finally get a 6-inch posable figure of my favorite suits from Super Sentai. This is fantastic. Oof. Yeah, oof, I know. And then as time has gone on, they revealed, hey, no, we're not going to use those suits. We're just going to make our own. And then the suits got revealed, and people have opinions on them. The drama that you see happening now stems majority from two sides of a coin, because for the first time in probably the online era of fandom, we have an executive producer in Simon Bennett who is not just actively participating in conversation about Power Rangers in general, but specifically Power Rangers Cosmic Fury, to an extent that he's actually searching out other people talking about it and jumping into their conversations to clarify or to voice his own opinion, which some people appreciate and other people are like, what are you doing?
Because the producers of the show used to be like these mythical figures who you'd only hear about occasionally.
Exactly. I mean, we have so many conspiracy theories from 27 years of the show and the brand because we don't know why decisions were made.
I've only ever seen one photo of Amit Bhawmik.
I saw him at PMC 2022.
It was only like a few years ago where Yost actually said, like, yeah, no, this is why I left Power Rangers. Why he left Power Rangers, right?
Yeah.
That was in the late aughts, early 10s, I think. I can't remember exactly when.
That's still 15 fucking years from 19, not that long, but 10 years?
Yeah.
Even that specific moment has its controversy. So, I mean, and the only reason I say that is because when that story first broke, one of the producers from the show, and I'm not exactly sure which one, because this is 15 years ago now, it was on Ranger Board. One of the producers on the show basically came out and said, that nice story, that's all bullshit. You quit because we wouldn't pay you more.
And I think, didn't several of the other actors coming back Yost up?
I honestly don't remember, because he did it with Lisa J from No Pink Spandex. He did a video that she was doing. She did like some special web series for a few episodes, and that was like the premiere episode or whatever. But I don't know. But the story that the other side of that story, obviously he says that he left the show because he was bullied for his sexual orientation, his for being gay. But other people say that the bigger problem was he wanted Power Ranger money, like he wanted to be paid like he was still a Power Ranger when he was no longer a Power Ranger, and they were refusing to do that.
I mean, here's the thing I can say I can like empathize with is if you're getting bullied and shit, but you can kind of put up with it if you're getting paid. If you're not getting paid anymore, why do you have to deal with the homophobic bullshit? It's like, all right, I'm leaving. Bye.
And we also know for a fact from several of the other actors who left before him that, like, Power Ranger money wasn't even that good.
No, it wasn't. And I've learned a lot since the passing of JDF from people that have spoken up a little bit more regarding the stuff he did for the rest of the cast. I mean, he would basically go to the table and negotiate raises for them because he was the golden goose, so to speak. Like, without him, Power Rangers doesn't exist.
He was the Robert Downey Jr. of the franchise, so to speak. And Catherine and Akia have basically come out now and been like, yeah, like what? Sorry, like my computer just randomly got off there. Okay.
Sorry, they've come out in their own video and basically explain like, hey, why did we leave Turbo? And it's kind of like, well, Jason wanted to leave the show. He was ready to move on. And when Jason was ready to move on, that's when Haim and that crew were like, all right, well, let's just replace the whole cast. And they discovered that they were going to be replaced. And so they made the decision, like, no, we're not going to let you fire us. Let's just go ahead and negotiate the end of our contract and we'll walk out on our own. And that's why you had that send-off that you got in Turbo. But it stemmed from JDF saying he was going to leave the show. I just want to say too, regarding David Yost, like, I totally believe his side of the story. I was just explaining that there was another side to that was coming out. I don't want to come out there and be like, I don't believe him. No, I totally believe 100%.
Especially
it's the
with like
fucking 90s when gay was an insult. Of course they were homophobic.
yeah.
Yeah.
And even that, just
even
like
if they weren't directly homophobic to him, I can believe there were plenty of gay jokes on the set about other shit that he wasn't comfortable with.
As a child who grew up in my teenage years in the 90s, I can tell you for a fact that there was a lot of derogatory terms that would get you canceled now that were spoken very freely back then, and it was not a bad thing to do.
I mean, hell, I grew up in the mid to late 2000s. I've gone back and looked at plenty of stuff from when I was a kid that has homosexual insults that I'm no longer okay with, and has mental insults I'm no longer okay with. The amount of stuff I have realized in like the last 2 or 3 years that had the R word in it, that was hilarious when I was a kid, is like,
God, yes. I mean,
man.
That was you. That was the way you won the verbal fight that you were in.
Yeah.
That doesn't make it okay today, right? And it's important to remember that who we were as children is different than who we are today. As long as we've grown from those experiences and changed who we are, that's fine. And the fact that we can sit here and admit, like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I did some fucked up shit when I was a kid. I said some fucked up shit when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make what was said okay, but like, we have to remember, like, it's unfair to judge, for example, it's unfair to judge a movie from the 60s in today's standards, because in the 60s, that was what was there, you know what I mean? And no one's trying to say that movie today is okay, but let's recognize that in its time frame, in the era it came out, that's what it was, you know what I mean? So
to loop the conversation back around, what do you think will be in Cosmic Fury that people won't be okay with in 2 to 3 years?
That's hard to say, because again, you have to circle back to Twitter and how it's a completely different entity now than it was before. So there's a lot less moderation of what I would call your extreme, like, right values, which would be kind of anti-LGBT,
Nazi shit.
Yeah, exactly. And because there's less moderation of those personalities, you see a lot of those voices coming through a lot more now.
Yeah.
And I still think
which is part of why I moved to Blue Sky. They shut that shit down fast there.
I still think it's a minority voice. The problem is that now no one from the corporate side is trying to silence it. Which means it's in your face now. Now it's up to you to silence it. So I think, and I mean, we saw it in Dino Fury with Izzy and Fern. We did see it, like, it was there, and I think, and I have to applaud the fandom as a whole, because I think the fandom as a whole did a really good job of shutting all that shit out and shutting it down.
Yeah.
But my concern stems from the fact that I believe I believe, one, it's a good thing, because I think we're going to see more representation, more identity representation in Cosmic Fury, which socially is fantastic, and it's something that Power Rangers honestly probably should have done a long time ago, and I'm glad they're doing 100%. It now. However, that filter on social media is not there anymore, so unfortunately I think you are going to see commentary from Nazis, essentially, filtering into your feed, and it's going to feel like people have a problem with it, when in reality, I don't think any new people have a problem with it. I think it's just the people that were getting silenced before aren't getting silenced now, so you're going to see it.
We can all look forward to Ben Shapiro's Cosmic Fury review.
Oh no!
Yes, can't wait for that.
And that's probably going to get amplified more because of leaks we have seen of relating to that character, but I'm not going to say much.
So, the big drama that, maybe not big drama, but when it comes to that type of drama, obviously, like, there's different groups within the community who have different amounts of feelings. Like, obviously, you have a lot of Black Toku fans who have been upset because they feel that Zato, as a Red Ranger, is yet another example of a Red Ranger being pushed out of the way for a non-Black character to take the leadership role. Something you saw, in Space, something you saw in SPD, where the character who's the leader of the team at the end of the series gets shoved out, and they're no longer the leader of the team, and now 9 times out of 10, it's a white person that takes the role. They're not upset, and I'm speaking obviously as a white person. I'm only commenting on it. I'm not making an opinion. I'm not saying who's right, who's wrong, or anything like that. I want to clarify that real fast. But from what you see, that no one's upset that there is a female Red Ranger. They're upset that a person of color, a black person, has been taken out of that leadership role, and they're not okay with that. Not that there's a female Red Ranger is a problem, just that, why does the black person have to be taken out of that leadership role?
Yeah.
Totally valid feelings.
Their questioning is, why can't it be both instead of one or the other?
Yes. Why does this person have to lose their role? Why do they have to go into a diminished role? And rumor is that Russell Curry's character has less screen time in Cosmic Fury than he did in Dino Fury. Like, he's story-wise, he's not in the show as much.
He's becoming more of a capital M mentor as opposed to the lowercase m mentor he was during Dino Fury.
Exactly. And
even just creatively, that's a shame, because I really like Zato as a character. He's like one of the best Red Rangers we've had in like a decade or so.
100% agree. 100% agree. So totally valid feelings. And obviously on the flip side, then you have the people that are like, well, we're just excited. We finally have a character who from the start of the series is going to be the leader and in the Red Ranger role, who's a female. Like, we should be cheering that. And there's that back and forth between those two groups that are.
And it's like both ideologies are valid.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so that, I think, is going to unfortunately continue to be an issue. And as someone from the outside who essentially just has to watch this thing go back and forth, I hope that canonically within the show that whatever that outcome is something that's pleasing to both sides, because obviously it's a very muddy situation for those of us who are not impacted by that.
At this point, I'm honestly, with Cosmic Fury, I'm just like, I hope the show is fun to watch.
Yeah.
I hope I can have a fun 5 hours binging that when it comes out.
It's the 30th anniversary. I hope these rumors are true. I hope we get the Death Rayuser, character, the Dark Ranger. I hope those rumors are true, and I hope that character we get that.
I forgot those were rumors. Oh,
there's rumors of that, and there's also didn't friggin' Beast Morphers Nate, his actor, was in New Zealand for like a week.
He was in there, and someone was saying the other day that Megan Camarena, Hyperforce Pink, was in New Zealand during filming.
Oh, that's exciting.
Excuse the fuck out of me. That's
I don't know how truthful that is, and I could probably get an answer on that.
We'll find out in a month. We'll find out.
We'll find out in a month. But
and
there's other things, where
It's also just like, it's the final season of one of my big childhood obsessions. I kind of I want to tune in.
Someone who is closer to someone on the show had asked, like, hey, is Billy the only Mighty Morphin Ranger that appears? Because remember, there was like a 2-ish week interlapping moment where both casts were there together. Like, so they're like, hey, does any other Mighty Morphin actor like even show up on the screen? And the person's like, I really can't talk about that. So we might get Min might make an appearance for an episode or something. So I mean, it's we don't know, and I think that is the problem that we run into, is we're as a community so focused on the things that we don't like so far, whether it's the suits, the controversy over the Red Ranger.
Well, and there's also that Power Rangers as a fandom was so used to a certain news cycle for so long of, we get the initial tease at the licensing expo, then they roll it out properly at PMC and Comic-Con.
You had a slow drip, but it was a scheduled slow drip. You knew when the drip was coming. Now
and now it's like a leak of a bunch of shit could happen at any time, and also we're getting a weird number of episodes for Power Rangers all at once, and that could be the last time we get it for God knows how long. And I think a lot of people are just really scared and panicking about that.
Yeah.
So you have all of that happening all at once, and then you also have, again, Simon Bennett, who's the executive producer, also chiming in and
being an old man on Twitter.
And unfortunately, in
like,
my opinion, I think he's a fun person. I bet you he'd be really cool to hang out with and like have a drink with or whatever.
Well, but like, he is an old man on Twitter, and he doesn't seem to have any kids to come in and say, "Grandpa, that's enough. You're just making it worse. And stop poking the bear."
And
I've described the situation. If I can talk, I could describe the situation as both sides are communicating on different levels, and they refuse to get on each other's level.
Mm-hmm.
I think obviously he's very passionate about the projects he's worked on, and he's very defensive of the stuff he's worked on, which is good. I want showrunners who are very protective of their shows. I want that. That's important. At the same time, though, in his role as a representative both for the company and for the brand, like you really shouldn't go on social media and make a sweeping statement or a generalized statement about one section of fans, because you talk about kicking a hornet's nest, it's that's not something I want to see. And he's done that, unfortunately, in my opinion, a few times.
When he made the comment about it being a kid's show the other day, and it's like, I don't disagree with that. I think you're in the right to say that, but also don't fucking say that to these people. What are you doing?
And someone made a good point in hindsight after everything had gone down. It's like, look, like, it's a kid's show. Yeah, it's a show that's meant for kids, but for those of us who've grown up with it and have stuck with it for 30 years, 20 years, 10 years, it's more than that. It's more than a kid show. It's a part of our life, and in some cases a very important part of our life. So there's a lot more attachment emotionally to it than, oh, it's meant for 5-year-olds. And to dismiss people having valid concerns or valid criticisms. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of criticisms are bullshit, and people are just being nitpicky and finicky for the sake of being nitpicky and finicky. But for some people who have valid concerns or a valid criticism, to have those swept away with, oh, well, you're just a Sentai fan, you obviously don't understand Power Rangers, by the executive producer, like, you can't do that. Like, that's not. I mean, you can think that. He has the right to think whatever he wants, but in his role, going on social media and saying that is dangerous, because at the end of the day, if I'm an executive producer, and I'm not, but if I'm making a product and it's coming out soon, I want people to talk about it. I want all this discourse happening, all this, well, what's happening with this and what does this mean? That's what I want, because that's building up hype for my show. Because now people are going to tune in to find out what's going on. So if I keep jumping in to be like, well, calm down, because, rest assured that, we make sure this happens and we make sure this happens. Like someone said, he keeps jumping in to calm the waters when he doesn't need to calm the waters of a show that hasn't even come out yet.
Exactly.
Like, just let people go back and forth. Let
the
fandom
would be
the
a great
fandom.
strategy for him to take? Somebody just needs to make him a nice, crisp, high quality, ultra high def, with good looking subtitles GIF of Gosei saying there's a simple explanation for that.
Right? And don't get me wrong. So, I've had no issue with Simon. The only time I ever had an issue with Simon was he went on a tangent one day and it got him in trouble, and he had to take a hiatus from Twitter. I remember this because he had to take a hiatus from Ranger Board and Twitter. And that's when he went out there and basically shit talked Saban Brands for like 30 tweets.
Oh, I don't even remember this. I must have missed
same.
this.
No, he went out there because people were like, "Hey, why didn't Ninja Steel yellow and white kiss?" Because they were in a relationship. He's like, we wanted them to kiss and we filmed them to kiss, and they made us take it out. The reason Dino Supercharged changed is because that's what
the
Saban
stuff
Brands
we
wanted.
speculated.
The reason there was fart jokes is because Saban Brands mandated that we had to include X amount of fart jokes, and they even had a soundboard of fart sounds that they would make us use.
I remember Linkara talked about that at the beginning of History of Dino Fury.
I'm gonna tell you something, and it's the most I can go into it right now. And again, it's not my story. I can tell you a lot of that is fundamentally not true.
Oh.
And it's important to remember that a lot of the stuff he's sharing information from, he's speaking as if he was an executive producer. He was not. He was an assistant director at that point. So in any of these meetings,
he's sharing information he already had third hand.
Yes, he is sharing secondhand information that he probably got from like Chip Lin, I'm assuming, because he speaks globally of Chip Lin. I do not have the same opinion of Chip Lin. Again, not my story to tell. But and I think it's important to preface that, and that seems to be a habitual factor, is a lot of information that's shared he forgets to caveat that with, oh, well, I'm telling you this because this is what I was told, and just says it like it's gospel, and then the fandom eats it up, and it's like, oh, well, Simon said this is true, screw Spawn Brands, what a horrible company, blah, 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 blah.
I mean, we already kind of knew that beforehand. We didn't need anyone to, like, be like, they are horrible, just saying.
I mean, a lot of people... I agree with you there, Buster, but I think a better way to say it is just a lot of people already had hard feelings towards Saban Brands coming out of that era.
Yeah.
Where we only really got one show that most people liked, and even then, it kind of fell apart towards the end.
See, my personal opinion is that they purposely tanked the brand to make it cheaper for Brian Goldner to buy. That was my little conspiracy theory. I don't think that's necessarily true, but I mean, for it to take such a downward spiral after the movie came out with Dino Supercharge and the Ninja Steel, and don't get me wrong, like they announced that in like Toy Fair 2018 that Hasbro got the master toy license and that they could buy the brand if they wanted to later on.
And then it was like a week later they bought the brand.
Yeah, well, I remember at San Diego Comic-Con 2017. Myself and Michael Louie, who ran Power Rangers Now, and then Fury Diamond, who ran the Neo Saban Power Rangers channel before it became the official Power Rangers channel on YouTube.
Oh, what a legend!
The three of us were hanging out at San Diego because I've known those guys for a long time, and we were going to have lunch or whatever, and someone from Saban Brands was like, hey, let's all go to lunch together, like the three of you and me. And we're like, all right, cool. Yeah, that'd be fun, because again, when you are in those upper echelons and you're doing these conventions and you're reaching out and you're getting to know these people that work on the property that you cover, you build those relationships. So it's like, hey, I don't always speak glowingly of what you do, but I'm also promoting your stuff for free, and you recognize that, and we have a good like professional relationship. So we all went to lunch, and we're sitting there in the Hyatt, and sitting at like the most horrible table in the world because it was busy, and. This person was like, oh, well, what do you guys think the next, I can't tell you, but what do you guys think the next adaptation is going to be? What series do you think we're going after next? And we all basically threw out because again, nobody knew at that time that they were going to sell it to Hasbro. So we were looking at, my explanation as well, like following the Bondi like model of how they do their merchandise and how they have their price points for all these different things. Q Ranger's the most logical choice. Right?
Well, and it was also like a constant talking point with Q Ranger that shows the suits and stuff were developed in conjunction with Bandai of America.
The merchandise side of it was kind of developed with the idea that it would be easy to bring that over, right? Because the price points are all there, right? You have the collectible and the Q-Tama, which is very similar to the Ninja Steel throwing stars and the Dino Charge battery packs, right? It's a little accessory thing.
And the Ranger keys.
Yeah, you got the Morpher, right? Which is what those go to. So you have that price point. You got your role play weapon, right? You got your figure line that you can do with plenty of figures. You got plenty of Megazords. It just made the most sense. And this person was like, okay. And while we're doing that, they're like, well, what do you guys think about Go Busters?
Ooh.
And we were like, well, merchandise wise, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But that's definitely like a choice, like that there, if done right, that could be amazing. And this person was like, okay, cool. Later that year, I would end up going to California. My wife was one of like the diehard Linkin Park fans. So when Chester passed away, she was able to get tickets to the In Remembrance concert in the Hollywood Bowl. And so we went out there, and I reached out to said person at Saban. I was like, hey, like I'm in town, like you want to get lunch? And they were like, well, do you want to take a tour of the office? I was like, fuck yeah, I'd like to take a tour of the Saban Brands office. So this was in October, late September. Sorry, it was late September. Maybe it was early September. I don't remember. I have to look it up. It's out there though. And so I went there and went to the office and had a quick bite and chit chatted and looked at some stuff. And then they were going to take me to like their archive, so I got to go to the archive and stuff like that. But they were knee deep in pre-production for the next season, and so I had to be blindfolded and have like my eyes closed or whatever, walking through the office, because if I were to open my eyes or peek, I could see what the next season was going to be, and that's obviously a huge no-no. So when then it comes out like, oh hey, yeah, Hasbro's going to take over the toy license and we're doing Beast Morphers, which is Go Busters. I'm sitting there, and you connect all the dots. It's like, all right, so but in September, they were in full pre-production, and in July, they had an idea of what they were going to do, But that would mean at the same time that Bandai had to have known back in July that they weren't going to be doing the toy line anymore, because they would have been in pre-production for the toys as well, which means that Hasbro deal was going down behind the scenes anywhere from 6 to 12 months before it was announced.
Oh yeah, people don't realize it, but the development cycle for not just Power Rangers, but any toy brand is ridiculously long.
So if you think about that, in the middle of San Diego Comic-Con in July of 2017, Hasbro's already starting their own kind of like R&D, if they did R&D. Some people say they didn't do any R&D, being research and development on the brand, but that would mean, well, I mean, actually, I know for a fact that would have been the case, because more stuff I can't bring up, but now I'm remembering as I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, I remember that story I was told. So yeah, with the people that were in that room, then yeah, obviously that would be the case. So yeah, I mean, there's all that going on. So I'm trying to remember how we take that all back, but essentially yes. So now I've totally lost the train of thought of where this conversation even stemmed from.
We're just talking Power Rangers.
We're just talking Power Rangers. We're talking Saban brands and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, look, Saban brands, like, were they perfect? Absolutely not. A business model wise, they were actually a perfect business model, because the only thing they put money into was the show. Everything else they licensed out and people paid them for. So they didn't make a single toy. They just licensed that out. They didn't make a single pop vinyl. They just licensed it out. They didn't do their own backpacks. They licensed it out. Someone else paid them to do it. Hasbro, they have to pay everything almost themselves. So there's your dichotomy as far as why Hasbro's like, hey, this sucks. And when we talk about Power Rangers, we talk about the end of Power Rangers, right? So I think it's important to clear the air just a little bit, because I do see people out there like, hey, that's the negativity, the fandom negativity killed Power Rangers. That's why Hasbro's killing it. Hasbro doesn't care about that. Like, I mean, they care, but that's not going to cause a business decision to be like, we need to put the brand on. If they cared
about that, they would have stopped making the live action Transformers movies a long time ago.
G.I. Joe wouldn't be where it's at today.
Yeah.
Like, and granted, it's not that it's anywhere big. They have a toy line out, but the amount of negativity that I see around G.I. Joe and these old school collectors being like, F this brand, F this line, like, give me my 3 3/4, give me my O-rings.
I can still remember those first couple waves of Classified where everybody was like, yeah, this would be great if it just looked like it did in the 80s. And then they made that switch, and I saw a lot of people calm down. But every once in a while, you'll still get somebody coming up saying something stupid.
Exactly. And so the reason Power Rangers is gone, one, that was Brian Goldner's baby. That was Brian Goldner's purchase. He's gone. That was his purchase. That was his decision. And that was in the throes of him being like, we're going to be an entertainment company. We need to buy all the entertainment we can. Even if we don't do anything with it, the catalog itself is worth having for our future entertainment company. Well, then he died. And the shareholders appointed Chris Cox to be the new CEO. And the thing with Chris Cox was he made the company a lot of money working with Wizards of the Coast. He made them a lot of money and spent very little. And the reason he got appointed was, do what you did with Wizards of the Coast, now do it for Hasbro as a whole overall. Stop spending money, start making money. Get rid of all this crap and start making money.
And that's why E1's being sold.
Yeah, that's why E1's gone. That's why they got rid of Death Row Records. That's why, even in their shareholder calls, they even talk about like focusing on what works and putting everything else that doesn't on the side burner for now. And it's not that Power Rangers isn't profitable for them, because it is, right? We know that much just from their quarterly.
The most profitable thing.
Exactly. So look at it this way. If I spend $20 on Power Rangers, making Power Rangers, and I make $30 back, I made $10 profit, right? But G.I. Joe, I'm spending $50, but I'm making $90 back. I'm making $40 in profit on G.I. Joe. So $40 versus $10, that's a lot. So what happens if I take that $20 that I'm spending on Power Rangers and I put it in G.I. Joe? So now I'm spending $70 in G.I. Joe. Just basic, like, rudimentary, like, math evaluation and exponentials. And
I know it doesn't directly work like this, but you just gave me, like, the horrible thought to disseminate to the Power Rangers fandom of Power Rangers died so G.I. Joe fans could have a retail classified fan. Fuck you.
Exactly. So if I take that money in Power Rangers and I put it in something else that's already making a lot of money, I could make even more money and not spend a whole bunch more money to do it.
And even then, it's like Hasbro has experience of gap years, because Transformers is still like a thing, but it's had its gap years, it's had its lighter years, and then they have a big blowout with a new show, So what I'm thinking,
Joe just had a huge gap period before coming back with Classified.
Yeah.
God, yeah. I mean,
and also it's probably like the Hasbro's probably not used to the yearly Sentai formula of just having to R&D everything so early.
The last time they did anything like that was the Transformers Unicron trilogy, and a lot of creatives from around that time, except for Aaron Archer, are kind of like, that wasn't the best. That was really stressful. Like,
I mean, animation errors were like all over the shows.
Oh yeah, I mean I've known Aaron Archer for a very long time. I consider him a friend. He'll be the first one to tell you, like, hey, during those like Cybertron trilogy years, we were pumping stuff out like there was no tomorrow. He said like, hey, we spent 70% of the budget and only got 30% of what we wanted. That comes from the new working relationship they have with Takara, because before it was, hey, Takara, make the toys and we'll bring them over. Then it was like, hey, we're going to make it together, and that was a weird transition. But with nowadays, what's dangerous, and I try to tell people this because for years I was told, oh, Hasbro wouldn't spend $500 million on something to give up on it. It's like, well, no, but $500 million on something for nobody else to be able to do it? Yeah, because
when was the last time you saw something with the name Parker Brothers on it?
Exactly. Kenner's a nostalgic thing, so that's why you see Kenner's name out there, but that's nostalgia.
Yeah, but how many of the brands that Kenner made, other than Star Wars, do you see them regularly use?
I miss Mask. I'm just saying. But
hey, Super 7 might have you covered.
They might have me covered, and I still have firm belief that G.I. Joe Classified will do a Matt Tracker figure at some point.
That's the 1/30th that I need replaced. Or is it 30th? I don't know.
That was the 25th anniversary figure.
Yeah.
There you go.
Didn't Hasbro also have they have a ton of toy brands they just don't use? If anything, they get folded into other toy properties so they can just keep the IP
one of the biggest things out of Comic-Con this year was people just losing their shit over Marvel Legends Crystar.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was like the hottest. That I would argue that was even hotter than HasLab Ghost. The amount of people losing their mind over Crystar.
And the funny thing is, we're more of like a media-based channel. So, I came on to the fucking No Prize podcast, and here it is. Here's their big reveal. Boingo, look, it's Crystar! And it was like, okay, moving on.
Well, yeah, I mean, for us, it's not a big thing, but for people that, I'm in my early 40s, for people that are in their late 40s, they watched that on TV. That was one of the shows they watched. So that's a huge deal. That's like, holy crap, I can't believe they're doing that. And their hype builds hype for other people that are like, oh, well, this looks big. And then of course you have your resellers that are like, well, obviously I need to order like 20 copies of this because it's going to go for some change. And then you have almost like a false inflation. And then Hasbro goes, oh, well, look how well it sold. They must want more. Let's do more. And then they discover, oh, wait, it's not really
Marvel Legends ROM, please.
Exactly. It's 1001 speculator bubbles and bursts.
Yeah, so
Classified ROM, why not?
So I've already figured out how they bring G.I. Joe back, right, and how they get it back. I sat there.
Isn't it back with the comics? Isn't Skybound doing comics again?
They are doing the comics
on it, but comics aren't everything.
Remember this, and it's important to kind of take this into consideration. So Power Rangers is getting put on hiatus, right? Power Rangers is getting put on hiatus despite having a show that ran for 30 years straight. Had a comic book that's been going for years now, has a very successful mobile game, had a very successful console game. It's still going on hiatus, yet G.I. Joe still does
also has
nothing on TV.
a TTRPG coming out soon, too.
Yeah, G.I. Joe doesn't have a TV show. They have not had a comic book for 2 years now. The movie was one of the biggest flops in the history of toy-related property movies out there.
You're speaking of Snake Eyes specifically, right?
Yes, specifically Snake Eyes. Because I do have a fondness for Rise of Cobra. I thought that was a fun movie. But
I like all three of them, but I recognize the problems others have.
Yes. And so it's one of those things where, like with G.I. Joe, and someone at San Diego brought up a really good question at their panel, and it was like, hey, I look around this room, right? And I'm talking from a marketing perspective. I'm looking around this room and I'm seeing people in their 40s, people in their 50s, right? Even some people that look like they could be in their 60s. We're the ones buying G.I. Joe. How are you going to make the kids that are 8 years old today, the kids that are 6 years old, the kids that are 12 or 13 years old, how are you going to get them invested in G.I. Joe? Because in 20 years, the guy that's 60 is probably dead. The guy that's in his 50s isn't buying toys anymore, and I'm probably not buying toys. So what's the future of G.I. Joe? Because it feels like the brand is completely focused on these old collectors, right? what's the future? How are you supposed to market this to a new generation? And I thought that was a great question because how do you market a military toy line in today's world?
Oh, I know exactly how you do it, and I've been saying this. I've been telling Beck and Snowcone this because they like G.I. Joe. You make a Fortnite clone.
You make a Fortnite clone, or my idea was something that I told them they needed to do with Power Rangers, and they didn't, and that's, in my opinion, why you see where it is now, is you need to continue to stoke the flame of who's buying it right now, right? So you keep classified going. You have to kind of refresh a little bit to keep it going, but you need to get kids involved. So what do? You make a younger demographic targeted show of some point. And my thought process was go ahead and use Snake Eyes, but use Timber, the dog, the wolf, as a focal point to get kids interested. And I know that sounds weird, but you need to get kids interested in it, right? Get Timber involved in there, where Timber's somehow a major character. That's what you do for the kids. You give the older fans the next G.I. Joe Resolute, right? Your Paramount Plus streaming animated service or animated series that goes for 10 to 16 episodes. And then you continue on your Transformers G.I. Joe collab movies or whatever. Doing that gets more eyeballs on it. And then, yes, you'll have your comic come back out. But again, the comic's coming back out. I don't think you're going to see a huge drive on it because it's not going to be G.I. Joe. I mean, they are doing a Real American Hero continuation of the Larry Hama series or whatever, but that.
But Joshua Williamson is also doing his own reimagining that's part of the Energon universe.
He is, and I don't know. That's going to go well for people who have an interest in G.I. Joe, but no, I don't think you get a casual comic book collector going to pick up Duke issue 1.
I think
here's the thing. Joshua Williamson is DC's it guy right now. Mm-hmm. So I think there might be people who are Joshua Williamson fans that will give it a shot.
I mean, that's a reason why they got Daniel Warren Johnson to do the Transformers book, because he's Daniel Warren Johnson.
He was one of Marvel's it guys. Just
want to throw it out there. Just like Void Rivals today or this week released another issue or whatever, and has I'm in love with it. Like, because I feel like they're going back to the G1 cartoon universe, and they're just kind of like, hey, we're just gonna play around in this for a little bit because there's a Quintesson and there's Slizardo and the other little guy from season 3, the stupid little organic creatures that were bad guys.
I like Void Rivals, but it's starting to feel to me like every issue they got to pull out a new cameo to keep people interested, and I'm like, can we? But get the story going?
It's just one of these lines where this creature is talking to the Quintesson. It's like, hey, I don't like you, but I'm still going to sell you this ship. I think you'll love it. It's Nebulon in origin, and it's pre-Hive era. And I'm like, for me, that's a deep cut, right? That's going to season 4 of the original Transformers.
Did impress me a little bit.
And I'm like, all right, and I'm like, okay, I'm down for this, and that's what I enjoy. It's like, all right, I like where this is going. I like dabbling in this universe a little bit. Like, you have as a Transformers fan, you have my interest. Not to take anything away from it, all the stuff that IDW did, especially I was in love with the era with James Roberts, with More Than Meets the Eye and Lost Light,
Phase 2,
and then everything they were doing with Robots in Disguise, and then Optimus Prime before the reboot. After the reboot, they lost me. But I was a huge fan of that world that they had created and the stories the characters were telling and stuff. I really, really enjoyed that. And I don't take anything away from that, but I'm also excited for a fresh start because I did fall out with the comics. And I'm very interested in getting into the G.I. Joe side of it now, because I'm interested in where this universe is going. I'm interested in how they're going to take a spin on G.I. Joe, because G.I. Joe, other than the comics, the cartoon never really had a deep lore.
No.
And because I never read the comics, I don't know the lore of G.I. Joe that much. I know Duke's brother is Falcon, and Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow have a history. That's about as far as my knowledge of the lore of G.I. Joe goes, and Destro sells stuff. And
we're doing a podcast where we're reading through the old Hama series now, and it's been interesting. We're only like 3 issues in, but I've also just learned stuff through osmosis. Like, I guess I technically know spoilers about Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow's whole backstory, and I'm interested to actually read those issues now.
Well, I'm excited too because look at Classified, the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Chuckles. Like, I remember Chuckles from the animated movie, which was a very minor role and kind of in the background, but in the comics he was a major character, and that figure is an homage to the comics.
Mhm.
And I think
like he had a whole fan favorite miniseries in IDW, I remember.
Yeah. So I mean, that is a love letter to the people that love that character from the stories that were told from the comic series, and I think that's fantastic. And I'm excited to see what GI Joe does with that. And that's why I want to get into what Skybound's doing, because if there's one thing about Robert Kirkman that I respect, it's that he respects his properties. Right, like Walking Dead's kind of been hoarded out to like the ends of the earth. Right, I just saw they're doing a Daryl Dixon new series now on Walking Dead.
This is cash cow. Like that's the thing that pays the bills.
Essentially, yeah. And then Invincible has been fantastic. And I will always have a fondness for Robert Kirkman and everything with Image, because I love Radiant Black. I love what Kyle and Melissa and Ryan and Matt have created in the Radiant Black Massiverse universe. And that's through Image, and they've gotten a lot of buy-in from McFarlane and from Kirkland and stuff like that. So, I'm willing to give it a shot. I'm willing to see where that goes. But yeah, I mean, it's just tying everything all back together, like going back to Power Rangers somehow in some way, shape, or form. I'm scared of the hiatus, because companies don't usually put something on hiatus. They usually, but they don't also say, yeah, we're canceling it, we're done with it. They say, hey, we're going to put it on hiatus, and it might come back. I don't know.
Well, as far as we know, the Entwistle project isn't canceled.
It's not canceled, but it's also not moving,
because
you have strikes right now, so it's not moving. So my fear of that is, if it still hasn't entered any type of pre-production, that means at the absolute earliest right now, you're looking at late 2025.
Yeah, I don't think we're seeing any new Power Rangers content for a while, which, as I said in my latest video, I think might honestly be good for some people to kind of unplug from this franchise and look at other things.
It does need to go away. Look at Transformers. They went away and came back with Beast Wars and got a whole new generation of fans involved in it.
I mean, if we're just going to keep talking Toku, look at Kamen Rider.
Hey, I was about to say that too.
Yeah. Kamen Rider did go away for a solid decade there, so
yeah.
Give or take a movie or two.
Not decade the character, but an actual decade.
Yeah. And then Kuga is like one of... It's not just like a beloved installment of Kamen Rider, but it's a beloved television show in pop culture in Japan, as I understand it.
Yeah, well, I mean, anything Showa is beloved out there, and then the beginning of Heisei is considered gold. I mean, Kamen Rider Blade and Den-O are considered like Kuga. It's considered iconic. For me personally, I've always been a latter half of the, what would you call it, the Neo Heisei? Is that what the fans started calling it?
Heisei Phase 2, I think, is the current term.
Yeah, because I think there was a time period where they did say that, and someone pointed out, hey, that doesn't really make sense, because Heisei is just like the Emperor, and they're not calling it that. It's like, oh yeah, they're just calling it Phase 2? Alright, we'll just call it Phase 2.
I think they called it Neo because people call it the Neo Saban era for Power Rangers, and that Neo just kind of bled over into Kamen Rider, so it just started being called the Neo Heisei. But no, yeah, Heisei Phase 2, like, for me, that's when I really, really, like, got into Kamen Rider, like, spending way too much money on it.
Like, you're the biggest Gaim fan I know.
Yeah, I have an addiction with that. Yeah.
You got all those CSM
We're so sorry.
You know what? I stopped collecting the CSM lock seeds because I'm like, these are the same as the regular ones.
Good for you. Look at you, man.
They just fit into this. So you know what? Like when they go on clearance, the last couple sets, I'll get them. Now, granted, when they do the Genesis driver, yes, I'm going to pick that up. Am I going to get the bow, the Sonic Arrow to get the lock seed? I'm going to be pissed if that's the only way I get the lemon or to get the melon.
Oh man, seed, complete selection, gigantic Sonic Arrow, as big as an actual fucking longbow.
Yeah, no, that apparently was one of the leaked items that's supposed to come out, but then again, like I've known they were supposed to do a what's the sword, not the Musou saber, which is Gaim's like orange slicer, but the other sword with the gun attached to it.
Oh, that is the Musou saber. The Dai Maro is Gaim's orange slice sword.
So the Musou saber was supposed to come out. Like they were supposed to do that. That was supposed to be like the end of the line was supposed to be with that. Maybe it still will be, but obviously that's been pushed, not just back, but way back.
Everything seems to be on hold right now for Thai's 20th anniversary, and then there's a Blade 20th anniversary project that seems to be in the works, and then the other day, Gakusana was like, yeah, Gaim 10 years after, it's happening.
Yeah, which I'll be very excited for. But
and then we just got the poster for Daigo's return. So.
Yep.
What?
Oh, you didn't see it?
I haven't seen this. What the fuck? It's confirmed?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
confirmed.
Oh yeah.
Oh shit!
So
Give me
it's,
the
it's
link.
Give me a second.
it's the idea is it's going to be the second half of King Oger, and they're doing a time skip.
Yeah, I heard the rumor.
So it's
and I
gonna
saw the confirmation of the time skip, but Daigo's actually going to be there.
Yep, he's got his
Starting
own
October.
new suit.
Oh,
he's
he's got new shit going on.
The king is back.
I will
other
say,
king.
I think.
Oh fuck!
I will say this poster makes me think, and like people are like, Daigo is like, there's Earth in the background. Like, are they gonna like make Daigo the king of Earth while everyone else is the king of their own nation or something?
Are we finally gonna leave the green screen?
It's not a green screen.
I'm sorry.
The volume,
the LED screen. Sorry.
We've already kind of left it here and there. The preview, like, I think they just made new sets for space.
Okay, may I quick just from this poster? Okay, here's the thing. What are the shoe gods? They're giant bugs.
Yeah, they already confirmed that
Hey, real quick question. What was going on during the time of the dinosaurs? Really big, giant, fuck-ass bugs.
There were only bugs and no dinosaurs.
These are two vastly different periods of history, Blanco.
They were still big-ass bugs then.
It's true.
Not that big.
Yes, but this is also a fun, goofy fantasy series that they can just fucking go like, oh yeah, this is the fucking far past. Look at these giant bugs.
Are you trying to propose the theory I hit Buster with the other day? What if King Oger is a secret Kyoryuger prequel?
I'm saying, what if it just takes place in ancient Earth and somehow it involves dinosaurs?
It's like Daigo's descendant or some shit, or like
no,
it'd be a twist.
It's sister.
No, I'm saying time travel.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the earliest rumors for Kyoryuger, and I love reminding people of this, is that Kyoryuger was going to be about time-traveling dinosaur hunters.
Well, again, they did that in the versus Go Busters movie for like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
It's possible. It's exciting, and I think it's important for King Oger because a lot of people have said King Oger's kind of fallen off in the last like 10 episodes. And let's face it, like this series is about to become
classic Sentai fatigue.
It's about to become Kyoryuger guest starring King Oger real fast. But I'm okay with that.
I'll have to see how they execute it come October.
What's going to be interesting? I mean, but at the same time, like having a previous Sentai involved in a new Sentai series is something that's not. I mean, we just saw it not too long ago. So so it's not a horrible
it's something
idea.
They've been embracing more and more over the years. Like they did that with Dawn Brothers, and the only time I can really think of that before that is when the Gokaiger showed up in Zyuohger for 2 episodes, and that was actually really important to that show's plot. And before that, isn't there like a freaking I forget which 2 shows it is, but like early Showa, there's a villain that carries over from one show to the next.
You even have in Gachard, it's rumored that Decade is supposed to be the 3rd writer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
or a variation of Decade.
Yes, a variation of Decade. It's Decade, not necessarily.
Masahiro, in a way, is gonna get paid.
It's Decade, but between the "d" and Decade, there's a hyphen.
See, all they need to do now is, for the second half of Gachard, is bring Ryuki in so they can have all the cards, and then go ahead and bring.
Hey, we got to get Blade in there.
I was gonna say bring Blade in too, and I'm sure he will be with his anniversary. So
well,
you also got to bring in O's for the alchemy.
Yeah, see, and you got to bring Forze in for the school aspect of it.
At that point, you're just making it
Common Rider Avengers.
You're just making like Outsiders 2 Electric.
And of course, you got to get the first Common Rider in there because they're all Common Riders.
And Shin Kamen Rider's popular, so you need to make appearance too.
Hiroshi Fujioka on screen as I can't remember his name, but the actor who plays Hongo in Shin Kamen Rider. That would be knucking fuds, and it's not going to happen. But God,
and then you got to also get Kamen Rider next. The guy who played Kamen Rider in the next in the
first in the next. Oh God,
the first movie.
I would be so annoyed if that happened in Gachard. But like, if you want to do a Toei Tokusatsu fan club special that's just like those 3 universes collide into each other for 40 minutes, I'd be up for that.
So basically, the Kamen Rider Shinobi or whatever.
Yeah,
do that again.
But hey, getting on the subject of Gachard, how are you feeling about it? Because we haven't talked about it too much, you and I, Chris.
I'm excited for it. I think they're striking the iron when it's hot, so to speak, when it comes to merchandise. I mean, really, if you think about it, it's such a merchandising. Sorry, I think if I sound quiet, that's why. Because essentially, all they're doing is printing cards. It's really cheap, and they're charging a lot of money for it. So
Yeah.
and
there's
really
also
smart.
a huge card boom in Japan right now.
Well, there's a huge card boom here too. So I mean, the amount of people that I'm friends with who have been like, "Oh, I just ordered, 3 boxes of each wave." It's like that's $81 a piece from Amazon Japan. Like, okay.
What are we talking about?
So
Kamen Rider Gachard is going to be a trading card show.
Yeah, the gimmick is
okay.
The store is essentially there's these little things called chemis, and they're essentially
That just sounds like a name for a drug. I just have to say it real quick.
There's ketamine.
It's essentially like little creatures or whatever, and you trap them in the cards. And then
this is the boy snow cone.
Oh, like a pocket monster. I see.
Yeah, and then then he uses the cards to transform into different whatever versions that chemi is, and there's apparently 99 of them. And they all get out or something. He's got to go recapture them, so to speak. I'm giving very basic plot. Like, that's not exactly how it works, but it's ideally how it is. So the main gimmick this year is cards again, but this time it's in the style of almost like a Pokemon Digimon type thing.
Yeah.
It's Pokemon. Digimon.
It's also got the double and build mix and match thing. If you put 2 in to make 1 form.
So everything is the card reader. So you put the card in the card reader, and it does a little bit more than what you got with Decade or with Blade or anything like that. So, or Ryuki, where it's just like reads the card. So it's there's a picture of the belt right there. So it's because again, you can put 2 different cards in, and you'll get a different form or a different name for whatever that form is going to be. And then
don't they have to add up to like 10?
I have no idea. And then they're doing Legend Riders too, so you get the Legend Rider cards and stuff. And so, it's merchandise wise, it's honestly brilliant. It really is. Because I mean, that was one of the things they talked about in the quarter earnings report for Bandai Japan when they talked about King Ogres. King Ogre was developed with the idea of not creating a ton of merchandise because raw material was expensive. So that's why there's not a collectible gimmick with King Ogre. That's why the story is so vastly different. So this is a little bit easier because card stock is a lot cheaper than plastic stock. So
what you're saying is card Sentai next year.
Well, we should get like actual.
Jack, you too.
We should get some concrete rumors on Sentai here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, like halfway through Sentai, we usually get the rumors of the next one.
And then and a little bit after the halfway point, we usually get the trademark.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you saying that just makes me go like, yeah, Geeks barely had anything.
Yeah, and it was a lot of reuse. The Geeks, yeah, they completely.
The buckles were big chunky things, and it was like everybody only had a couple.
The DX buckles are big chunky things, and they did not make a ton of them. They did make in the beginning a lot of the small little ones. Like the arrow.
That might also have something to do with why the ID cores weren't as plentiful as we expected them to be.
Yeah, they really got patient with how they released those, and you didn't even get the sound ones because when we first saw the Desire Driver, we figured, the ID core's got to have a sound to it. It's like, no, it's just a piece of plastic you put in there, and it makes the same sound no matter which one you put in. So it just says entry. So yeah, it now it makes sense because the raw materials, plastic is expensive, and obviously in Japan it's a little bit different. If they outprice the consumer will not buy it straight up. But that's a whole different conversation about marketing and what sells versus what doesn't sell. Because out here in the U.S., electronic toys, light and sound, those are popular, but in Japan, they're not so much.
And I mean, as is, we've already been talking for almost 2 hours, so now might be a good time to wrap up.
Sorry.
It's okay. We'll keep talking off mic, but I think this is a good solid chunk of podcast. I'm sure people have made it both to and from work by now. So hey, now that they're back home getting at their home computers, Chris, why don't you, as the guest, go first and tell everybody where they can find your content and your presences out there on the internet.
Sure. So you can follow me personally on all social media at Geek with Chris. So that's Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram. I think I already said that. But yeah, that's where you can find me there personally. And then my YouTube review channel is called More Than Meets the Eye Reviews. So if you just go to it, it's not existing yet because you have to get so many subscribers, and you got to put out more content to get more subscribers. So that'll come in the future. But feel free to look it up. I hope to get another video up here in the next week, actually. I actually documented my last purchase at Toy Federation. I just need to actually sit down and do something with the actual figures I bought. I already filmed myself going in and all that stuff. So that'll be fun and something that I look forward to sharing with everybody. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
All right. Buster, why don't you tell the folks where they can find you out there on the internet?
Buster Corp. I do YouTube videos on whatever I feel like, usually analysis videos. Even if the videos aren't out, I'm just gonna say it. I'm working on a Common Under Geeks review and a first half of King Oja review, so those should be out soonish. So you can also find me on Twitter at BusterBoy3, at Blue Sky at Buster Corp. And I'm also on Tumblr occasionally, mostly reblogging stuff.
All right.
Yeah.
Snowcone, where can people find you out there on the internet?
Nowhere. Don't find me. No. Never_robot on Instagram, and Snowcone83 on pretty much every gaming platform and other platforms sometimes.
Are you going to have a Blue Sky by the time this comes out on Friday?
I have yet to set up the link that Boingo Rider gave me, so hopefully yes, probably. I don't know what it's going to be though. Probably Snowcone.
Awesome. Somebody at me and remind me to put it in the video description. Boingo, where can folks find you out there on the internet?
Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, twitch.tv/Boingo Rider. I stream sometimes, and I'm gonna start streaming more regularly. Get hype. I'm on YouTube at Boingo Rider. Just find them. Video essays, video reviews of Kamen Rider. Finishing up Geeks this week, and I'm gonna start reviewing Gachard. I'm on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram at Boingo_Rider. I am on Tumblr at Boingo Rider. You can find me there. I am on Blue Sky at boingorider.bluesky.social, and I am on Mastodon at Boingo_Rider at vt.social. Do I have anything else? It's probably, but I'm gonna stop talking.
All right. And I am The Vacuuminator. I make YouTube videos. They're things I'm sometimes proud of. You can find them at The Vacuuminator on YouTube. I'm also on TikTok posting clips of my older videos. That is at _Vacuuminator. That is also my handle on Instagram, where I post daily action figure photography. And I have several social media accounts where all that stuff tends to get collated. I'm on Blue Sky at thevacuuminator.bsky.social and Tumblr, thevacuuminator.tumblr.com. But on the off chance you sat here through all of our plugging and tugging, please help us out in the algorithm. Support Modular Media by liking this podcast, commenting down below, subscribing, ringing that bell, and turning on notifications so that you get all of our content right when it comes out. Follow us on all our various social media. We're on Tumblr at Modular Media, excuse me. We are on Blue Sky, modularmedia.bsky.social, and we are on TikTok at Modular Media. But that's going to do it for this episode of Modular Components. Thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. We'll see you back here next week.